guys, welcome to Better Bachelor. My name is Joker with a face for radio and a voice for print. Today we're going to jump into how feminism's clown world is falling apart. And I'm going to talk about fourth wave feminism because it's moved obviously beyond making women equal, and now it's moved into intersectionality, making sure that all voices are heard, ironically, except for women in many cases, and how it's moving towards socialism and Marxism and all these other things. But interestingly, how it's failing. It's completely falling apart. It's not working. We'll know the final kind of verdict once we get up to election season. And many times I get a lot of pushback from people that call themselves either liberals or leftists saying, well, you know, politically, why do so many commentators on the men's manosphere and red pill start talking about, being against the leftists or liberals? And it's because intersectionality has been picked up by the left. Feminism's been picked up by the left, and they use this to weaponize it against men. And so if you are on the left, you're kind of on the side that is against yourself. And that's why we talk about these things. I'm going to talk a little bit about incomes of some of these companies, obviously, and how it's falling apart for them, both in media. And then we're going to move over to how it's actually causing governments to struggle and politics to struggle. And that if we don't see a pushback soon, men are, and especially Caucasians, are going to be moved to be relegated as a second-class citizen. And it will continue. And guys need to step up and push back against this, even if you don't like, a good way to put it is, even if you don't like the right or conservatives, you at least can't vote for the left and what they're doing, because they're working against men's own causes. Before I jump into this, we are still in first place for the race for the retreat. I have some B-roll. I have some B-roll video I took, and I'll load it up here. The video that you're looking at is going to be, this is the guy that's got a skip loader with a grinder on the front of it. I'll tell you, these are amazing machines. They're extremely expensive. I looked at getting one so I could clear some of the land myself, but it's so expensive. It's going to be cheaper for me to rent these guys by the afternoon, whether it's by the hour or whatever. And this guy owns his own equipment, so he doesn't have to rent it. So it's a little cheaper for me. It's still going to cost me anywhere between $1,500 and $3,000 per acre to get cleared. So as you can see, they're him chewing down through the trees and everything. They're going to leave everything big, and then they're going to have to come in and have an actual one of those the tree grabbers that comes in and grabs the trees and then cuts them and chunks them all up. I'm going to have them save the larger trees for me to use as firewood, so I have some fuel. And as many big trees as they're taking down, I'll probably have a couple of years worth of firewood once I season it and have it dry out over the course of a year or two. So at least I'll have I'll pay for a little bit of this land clearing by heating myself with the trees and the branches. I've got a couple of roads cut now into the property. One's the main driveway, and the other one's going down to the house area. And I'm going to leave the area around the house with lots of big trees, and it's going to be very foresty. I'm going to be nestled in the woods around the house. And then up in a higher area, I'm going to have this big clearing. And up here, I'm going to be putting a steel building that'll hold my tractor and probably my main vehicle, maybe some motorcycles, put a gym in here, and even a wood stove. So during the wintertime, I might have a studio out here along with my gym and my workshop. And then I'll spend most of the time in my garage, just like most men do, whether they're married or not. And then I also plan to put in a garden. So anyway, we're still in first place for the retreat. This retreat money is not going towards my property. It'll be going towards another property that men can come to and camp. But this is the kind of stuff they're going to have to do to the land. So it's going to be very expensive for the land purchase, clearing, digging a well, all that stuff. So make sure to use the links down below. Go to Jeremy's Razors or the Daily Wire, become a supporter today, which will help me win the money, and then I'll put that towards the retreat. Also, here on Locals, I'll wrap this up quickly. On Locals, you can see this is what it looks like as a member. I've turned on member-only mode, so I can see what the page looks like as a member. But I've got the Gilded server up and running. I've got a server that you can't see, but actually right behind this window, I've got a full-time dedicated Valheim server that is up. So even when I'm not playing and I'm in bed asleep, we've got the Gilded server up. We've got a Valheim server. So if you guys want to jump in and maybe game with me and be part of this world and play a little bit. And then I'm going to run this for a little while. And then once we kind of feel like we have a good group that has gone through and finished the game, I'll pick something else out and maybe we can play. But if you want to live chat with me, if you want to just shoot the breeze with me, I'm in Gilded a good portion of the day. You can jump in there and just talk to me. And also as a supporting member on Locals, you can message me. You can't really see it, but if I widen this window out a little bit, you can see right here, I think, well, right over in this corner, you can see you can message me, and you can just click on this and open messages. But we have an amazing community of guys here. We have all types of news stories, things that you don't see on mainstream news. It's a really great community, so I hope you guys come over and be part of that. Today, I need to pick up another about 250 supporters. That will be enough that if I can get 250 people to become a supporter at $5 a day, I can get off YouTube. Or, I mean, I'll be on YouTube, but if they kick me off or yeet me off, I don't need their income to survive. Fourth wave feminism. Fourth wave feminism is a feminist movement. It began around 2012, characterized by a focus of the empowerment of women, well, I guess I can't zoom that in anymore, use of internet tools, and intersectionality. And right there is the big problem. They say intersectionality is the analytical framework for understanding how aspects of a person's social and political identities combine to create different modes of discrimination and privilege. And now that they've moved into this, what you're getting is you're getting the tiered hierarchy of victimhood status. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. They say fourth wave feminism becomes a movement for women to speak up and share their experiences, online harms. And of course, the more online harms and the more things that happen badly to you, well, the more of victim points you get, and higher in the hierarchy you can be. They say it emphasizes intersectionality and interlocking systems of power and how these contribute to the social stratification and traditionally marginalized groups such as people of color and transitioning people. Fourth wave feminists advocate, like earlier feminists, for greater representation of these groups in politics and business, and argue that society would be more equitable if policies and practices incorporated perspectives of all people. Now, here's the thing with this, right? Traditionally, if you look at here in the United States, and I'm going to ballpark this, but if you look at the group of blacks in the United States, you might say, well, that's 15%. And I don't know the exact percentage. So then in that case, you'd say, okay, well, we would want 15% of people to be a minority or a black person in these job roles. But what if it's something like National League Hockey, where not a lot of black people live in areas where hockey is extremely popular, which is up in the north? Well, it doesn't matter. We need to find a way to get 15% of them in there. And that's kind of their view on how this works. What's interesting, though, that now they've done some surveys and they've asked people, what percentage of the population do you believe that is part of the LDHD TV community? And many people are saying 20, 30% because of how much representation they have, even though the true percentage is around 2 to 3%. So they're being overrepresented. And when that overrepresentation comes forth, people think they need to represent and speak to that small margin of people much more. And what this does is this causes people to leave a good portion of society and people like men out of the common issues. Well, what happens when things like this happen? We've got here from the Daily Wire, and again, become a Daily Wire supporter, and you can read all their content. They say the victimhood currency, and I've talked about this before, increasing number of teens anonymously bullying themselves online. And I'm not going to read down through all these articles because it would take me forever for this video. But they're saying that talking to them, about 13% of those who said that they got bad stuff online admitted to doing it to themselves many times. Now, why would you do this? Why would you send bad messages to yourself? Why would you screenshot this stuff and post it up online? It's the virtue signal. It's the, oh, woe is me. You know, back in the day, to get applause and to get loved and to get that adulation, people actually had to be in incredibly good shape or very rich or very popular. Well, now nobodies can come out of the ground, out of the groundwork, maybe I'd say, out of the background. whichever way I want to put it. They can come out of the background, do nothing, and just say, oh, bad things happen to me, and everybody says, oh, stunning and brave, and they get the applause. So you can actually do nothing and still get the adulation that you're looking for. So now people are doing this to themselves. But here, the BYU hoax falls apart in less than a week. Media came out with this story, and again, I'm not going to read all of these, but media comes out with this story that said that somebody was screaming bad things to an African-American Duke volleyball player. And she says I was targeted, and they ended up kicking somebody out and going after him. And turns out they had audio and video of the whole situation. Nothing happened. Nothing happened. Now, you didn't hear much about the apologies, but this is a story that went viral here. And same thing, here's a list of fake hoaxes and self-harm crimes in the Trump era. And of course, you guys all know about Jussie Smollett. But there's a list here of on and on and on. And all the ones making it into the news are fake. Why? They're actually struggling to find stories of actual incidences, because people know now that if you do anything that's even close to a whisper of anything, they come at you full force. And this is just from I think yesterday. From October 19th. So yeah, that would be, I think, yesterday. They say that there were IST texts to a black Air Force member, and they were faked. They had been fabricated. So supposedly this a black senior airman got these bad texts from a white technical sergeant, and they found out, oh, it's fabricated. Now, why are they faking these messages? Because again, victimhood is a currency now. And he who complains the most and he who has the most egregious actions against them, well, how is this failing? How is this starting to fall apart in society? Well, now, if you don't like something, if the quality of something that comes out is bad, such as like She-Hulk's, which has been just decimated by men, women, everybody alike, as bad CGI, bad story writing, just absolutely worthless. And I have not watched a single episode of it, but I've seen enough bad reviews, either by Nerdrotic or Geeks and Gamers or Jeremy over at The Quartering. I've seen enough reviews to know what's going on, because they cover the news of this stuff. And now if you speak out against this, they call you a troll, or they call you an incel troll. And I hate that word. But I'm going to use it here because they specifically are calling these people these things. And they say, oh, well, the writers hilariously smashed back against these trolls. Except the problem is they're not trolls. They're just people that don't like the quality of the product you're putting out. And what's interesting is by them fighting and arguing with the people that would have liked to have been fans were this good, but it's a bad product. What they're doing now is they're chasing away their own customers. Why? To protect the narrative. And so they're going to be losing money because of this. Same thing. Rings of power. Oh, it's trolls if you don't like it. They say not even the trolls can ruin the rings of power. But again, they're arguing with their own fans about the quality of work instead of listening to people and saying, hey, you know what? A lot of these people don't like what we're putting out. We need to fix this. Nope. They're going to protect their intersectionality and their fourth wave feminism so much that they will chase away the people that pay their paychecks. And they're going to suffer because the layoffs are just going to keep coming. Already, many of the social media outlets and many of these, even the places that write these dingbat articles, they're laying off people. Hollywood's going to be laying off people pretty soon. Everything's getting laid off. So it's just, they're going to end up ending their own businesses to protect this narrative, and this narrative isn't working. And of course, I've talked about this before. I did a video on Frost literally ruining a company. Everything is Gamergate. G4 TV Frost says all of her male critics are alt-right trolls. So now even if you're someone that is on the left or a leftist or a liberal or whatever, if you don't like her, if you don't like what she said about you, if you don't like their programming, welcome to the alt-right. Welcome. At this rate, everybody but about 5% of these weirdo leftists are going to be, everybody else is going to be alt-right. Everybody slightly to the right of like Mao or Stalin is going to be our alt-right. But this is what happens because G4 TV fell apart because she couldn't keep her big mouth shut. And she had to come out and start trashing on men and gamers and even female gamers that disagreed with her. And Adam Sessler, I think his name is, he went on an epic rant the other day, calling people all sorts of names. Well, what's happening now? Investors alarmed as streaming services lose their magic touch. And this is going back to February, and the numbers have only gotten worse. What was a red-hot outlook is cooling rapidly. And what happens? You've now got interest rates going up, so these businesses can't borrow money for free just to put out woke messaging. They now have to rely on their actual income because they can't borrow any money anymore. So they've got to rely on income, and the income that they rely upon, those people, they're fighting with them. Just like you see with the Marvel She-Hulk, HBO's doing it, Netflix is doing it. They're fighting with their own customers over their identity politics. And the customers are walking away, and now these companies are going to pay the price. Now, they're not going to collapse. They're not going to fail. But I'll tell you, they're going to have to change their tune real quick, or they're not going to last. The almighty dollar is speaking. And now it's moved into politics. And I don't talk about politics on this channel, but feminism is politics now. Fourth wave feminism and identity politics and intersectionality has been scooped up and is being run towards the goal line by the left. And it is anti-male. It is anti-white. It is anti-straight. There is a hierarchy now, and you're not in it. We guys are at the bottom of this hierarchy. And you know what? Here's the thing. There should be no hierarchy. No human being is worth any more than any other human being. We're all equal. I mean, that was kind of a thing right up until a few years ago. But now everybody has value based on immutable characteristics they have nothing to do with. And when you do this, you're going to make classes of people. And one thing that we fight about and push back is classifying people. Don't pigeonhole us, but that's what they're doing. And now you've got just everyday, I would call them normies, everyday non-politicos, everyday non-red pill people saying, you know what, I'm tired of this. I've got a son that's being affected or a daughter that's being affected by this. Their grades are suffering because you want to teach little Johnny in this pop-up book how to give a handy to a 45-year-old instead of teaching him math and science. And here you see Vermont high school under fire as girls and parents push back against the biological male student using a female locker room because this made national headlines. And I did a video on this where you got a volleyball team. And again, it's mostly these upper class or middle class, college educated white women that are voting for this stuff. And then when their daughters go to school and it affects them, they're like, this isn't fair. Well, you voted for it. But now there's being pushback. And who's the pushback coming from? Christians, conservatives, true liberals, people that don't want their kids to be taught this stuff in schools. And how about this one? Muslims. Michigan school board meeting turns chaotic as Muslim parents push back against the LGHD TV materials because they're saying, hey, no, you do not get to teach our children this in schools. And the pushback is coming stronger and stronger. And I did a story on this one, and I'll wrap it up with this. The RAF, in a spin, woke RAF bosses booted white male pilots off courses to meet diversity targets. And I've said this many times. Men are smart. Men are creative. Men will find a way to succeed and make it through anything you put against them. They'll find a way. And this was from August 20th, just, 2 months ago. Well, what did those pilots do? Now, I don't think this is good, But the UK is going to have to change laws to stop RAF pilots training Chinese military, says the minister. What happened? They said to these guys, look, we're going to do this intersectional thing. We don't want you anymore. You're out. And those guys said, you know what? If the UK doesn't appreciate me, if the UK wants to put me down because of my skin color, you know what? I owe nothing to the United Kingdom. If they're going to throw me under the bus and throw me away over something I can't control, fine. I'm going to do what best suits me. And they and Chinese recruitment went over and said, hey, why don't you teach us what the RAF military does, and we'll give you $250,000 per contractor per year to come over and train our pilots. Now, me personally, I don't think this is a smart move, because if the Chinese military is really good, they can wipe out, perhaps your home country, and then you may be Chinese whether you want to be or not. So I don't think this is exactly a great idea. But in the same token, what do you think these pilots owe to the UK? Nothing. They were thrown away. So these guys said, fine, we're going to go over there. And as it stood at the time of this happening, there's no law that these pilots said, hey, you can't train somebody else in another country for this stuff. So the guys say, okay, I can make $250,000 going over and help out China. I'll go help them out. You don't care about me. And now the UK is going, oh man, we need to write some laws so this can't happen anymore. But this is what happens when you throw away men. They're going to look for a way to do what's in their best interest, and they don't feel any allegiance to the UK for this. But what we see happening now is school systems are falling apart. Parents are pushing back. And this all has to do with feminism, because it's all intersectionality, which branches from fourth wave feminism. You've got streaming services falling apart. You've got a production, $1 billion for the Three Rings, or whatever they call it. I don't even know what it's called. It shows you how much I pay attention to it. That's falling apart. $1 billion production. She-Hulk, which could have been an amazing show. A lot of people really enjoyed the comics. That's falling apart. G4 TV fell apart, even though they had a huge production budget and a lot of people involved. You've got people coming out and fighting against school boards. Everybody is getting up into arms over feminism. Everybody except the small left-hand craziness. Everybody else is stepping up and saying, you know what, enough of this. We're done with this. And so one of two things is going to happen. Either this feminism wave is going to fall apart. People are going to vote it out. We go back to some reasonable normalcy in life, and all is well. Or it wins. And if it wins, we all lose, because everything then will it will be like they do up in Canada, which is state sponsoring things. Oh, this media outlet's not going to survive. What is it? This Canadian Broadcasting Network, CBN or something like that. Oh, they're not going to survive. We'll give them, I don't know, 300 million or $1 billion or whatever it was, so that even if people don't want to support it, the government will support it so they can keep putting out their propaganda. And then your taxpayers are paying the CBN to give you propaganda. I mean, you're almost at Pravda level. It's the same thing with PBS here in the United States. And so it's becoming harder and harder for channels like mine that talk about men's issues to stay away from this stuff, because feminism, which is directly against men, is now also against white people, is now also against straight people, is now also against the nuclear family, is now against equality, and instead is pushing equity. They're now about big government. They're now about you losing your freedoms. It's all tied together now. And you have to, even if you say, look, I am not a huge fan of politicians in general. And even if you say, you know what, I hate the Republicans, I will never vote for a Republican in my life. That's fine. I'm not a huge fan of Republicans myself. But at this point, you better ask yourself, can I vote for people that want to do me in specifically? As a man, can I vote for somebody that's going to do me in, to put me under, to push back me, or push against me personally? You got to, and if the answer is no, then you know what? Just don't cast your vote then, or vote for a libertarian, or vote for somebody else that's not in the system, that's not part of big government. Because big government at this point in time, if you look at the government programs, are direct adversaries of men in general, period. End of statement. They're against you. How you can vote for something that is directly against you, I don't know. And you're going to have to do something, because I'll tell you something. If you're in bed with the government and you're in bed for, you know, NATO and all these, everything that the government's pushing, I got news for you, champ. I got another video to do where recruiting, they've dropped recruiting standards into the basement for most governments, or for most militaries of the Western world, at least. So you know what that means? If we get into a struggle, whether, you know, with Russia, with China, with whoever, they may go back to the draft. And if you're between the ages of 18 and 25, or depending how bad it gets, 18 and 35 or 18 and 40, you may be going off to war, whether you want to be or not, whether you agree with the conflict or not. You better start looking for people that are looking for ways to resolve this conflict, because again, if there is conflict, it's going to be men mostly affected. So think about that accordingly. You know, keep your head to the ground, or keep your ear to the ground, and listen for what's coming, because we got some really tough times coming ahead unless we can reverse all this stuff. And I hope we can. I pray we can, because otherwise I think we're all in trouble. It just seems right now we're starting to get some pushback, and maybe we'll get some momentum on our side. I hope we do, because if this feminism keeps going, it's going to destroy all of us. I don't have any dating profiles of the day or anything like that, so I'll leave it at that. But guys, don't forget, join me over on Locals. We got a great community. We talk about a bunch of stuff over there. We got the race for the retreat. Stay up on that as well. We've only got, I think about 10 days left now until it's over. So we're still in first place. We're in the final push. Let's make it happen, and we'll go from there. We'll see you in the next one, guys.